but we mean diseases that are as well like accidents and other related issues. So once again, you are welcome to the class, and we are going to start. But before we do, I will request you to please mute your respective microphones. If you have any question or anything, you can just raise your hand and ask your question. Okay? Good. If you have anything to say, you can just raise your hand and ask question or make comments or send your comment on chat so that I can see it and respond to it. Now, let me start by welcoming you and by sharing my screen so that we can continue with the class. Okay, as I have said, we are going to look at the theories of diseases. That is how diseases are formed. There are two basic models of how human body is infected with diseases, or how humans get either injuries or any other thing that will cause ill health. So those two theories are what we are going to discuss, because basically epidemiology concerns the health of the general population. So when we say diseases in epidemiology, we don't simply mean diseases that are caused by agents. They can include accidents, they can include industrial accidents, they can as well include disasters, man-made disasters and natural disasters and things like that. Now, if you look at this slide, going by the assumptions that diseases doesn't occur in a vacuum, it must affect a person and it must be caused by something. Now, that something is what led to the creation of two theories. The first one is the epidemiological triangle theory, or triad theory of disease causation. Now, this triangle theory simply says, one, there has to be a host, that is the human that will be affected by the disease. Secondly, there has to be an agent, that is either a bacteria, a virus, a fungi, or anything that will cause the disease. And before disease can occur, there has to be a suitable environment where the agent that causes the disease can thrive and cause the particular disease. So that means there has to be a host, an agent, and a suitable environment. When you put the three together, it gives you the epidemiological triangle. So let's see the host. Now, usually it refers to human who can become infected and have the disease. Now, when we are talking about epidemiology, we are talking about diseases of the population, and it's individual humans that forms the population. So what affects the entire population will be translated to what affects a single human being is what will translate to affect the entire population. So human is now the host. Now, there are certain characteristics in the body of the human or the host that determine whether that person is going to be infected with a disease or no. And such things are personal traits, gender, sexual activities, socioeconomic status, and then the behavior, including feeding habits, exercise, whether the person is undertaking regular exercise or no, smoking, whether the person is a smoker, drinking. And then there is also genetic disposition or predisposition, whereby some people already have certain genes that will make them have certain diseases. And then there are immunological factors as well. That is the strength of the immunity of the individual, previous exposure, and whether the individual is vaccinated or not vaccinated. So all those factors are the ones that will affect whether someone will get a particular disease or not. Now, if you look at it, beside the host, then there is the agent. Now, the agent that causes the disease could be, generally, an agent is an external organism that must be present for disease to occur. They could be biological, that is living organism that causes diseases such as bacteria, virus, fungi, or parasites, or even higher animals, such as snakes that can cause snake bite. Then you have sharks for people that are regular swimmers, where the water is infested with like the great white shark and things like that. And then other higher animals that can as well injure humans are now considered as well as part of agent. Now, agent could as well be physical. That is like radiation, intense sunlight, storm, physical injuries, or repetitive mechanical force that causes injuries to the body of human. Agent can as well be chemical. That is when people are exposed to hazardous chemical. Now, the strength of a living agent depends on its virulence and dose, and also strength of chemical and physical also depend on dose or rate of exposure or the concentration of the chemical. That is the rate at which they cause diseases. Agents, there are some agents that are very virulent. There are some agents that are mild. So you find that once the agent is present, it goes into the body of the host at the appropriate environmental condition and causes disease. Now, when we say environment, this refers to extrinsic factors that affect the agent and the opportunity for exposure. There are certain conditions, environmental conditions, that do not favor the agent to infect human and cause diseases, whether in the body of the human itself, that is the strength of the immunity, or external environmental factors that affect the availability of vectors that transmit the diseases. You find that some of these agents that causes disease in human usually rely on another organism like insect to transmit them from one person to the other. Now, in the absence of such insects or vectors, as they are usually called, you find that there is no disease transmission. For instance, if you take malaria, which is the vector of malarial parasite? The parasite is Plasmodium. Can someone mention the vector?
Female Anopheles mosquito.
Fine. Then in the absence of the female Anopheles mosquito, it means there will not be transmission of malaria, isn't it? So in such a situation, when the environmental factors are not suitable for the presence of the vector, or for the presence of the agent, or for the proliferation of the agent, then there is no disease transmission. So you should remember, for disease to be caused, if you look at this triangle, there has to be first the host, that is human. Then there has to be an agent that is responsible for causing the disease. Then there has to be an appropriate, suitable environmental condition. Without any of these three, there won't be diseases. For instance, take all diseases that are transmitted by insects. and then eliminate the entire insect colonies or population that are responsible for transmitting one disease or the other, that means those diseases can no longer occur because there is no agent. Environmental condition is not suitable for transmission. Or if you eliminate the disease-causing bacteria or the virus or the parasite, like in case of polio that has been eliminated through vaccination, then in the absence of the polio virus, there won't be polio. So the three have to come together. And whenever you want to do any control strategy, you should remember, if you are asked to devise a means that a disease can be controlled, look at the environmental condition. What are the factors that are favorable for such diseases? What are the agents that are causing the disease? And how do you now change the environmental factors and make it unsuitable for the vectors or for the disease-causing agent? As soon as you make the environmental condition unsuitable, fine, no diseases. If you remove the agent, no disease. If you now remove the host or put a barrier between the host and the transmitting vector, like the use of mosquito net, that is a good example of barrier. You are putting a barrier whereby the vector cannot have access to the host. So there won't be any disease also. So once any of the leg of the triangle is broken or tilted, the balance will change and the prevalence of disease will also be affected. So prevalence of malaria in any community is going to be drastically affected when mosquitoes are controlled. When you change the environment and make it unsuitable for mosquitoes, then you will decrease the prevalence of malaria. But a situation whereby you make the environment favorable for mosquitoes to thrive, then you will also increase the prevalence of malaria. Now, with change in the host or environment, the disease agent itself, presence and intensity of disease also changes. Sometimes an increase or decrease depending on what changed and how it changes. Depending on how you change the environment, you either increase or decrease one particular disease. Depending on the host changes in the body of the host, it prompts the host to certain diseases. For instance, if you go to a community where they don't have lung cancer, the prevalence of lung cancer is very low, and then you suddenly build an industry in the community, let's say asbestos factory, and they are always inhaling the dust of asbestos, you have changed their environmental condition, and you have introduced an agent which is a physical agent of pollution, and therefore you are increasing their chances of having cancer. Whereas if you go to an environment where there is a cement factory and people are inhaling the dust and are having lung cancer, and you shut down the cement factory and reduce the air pollution in the area, so you are now going to decrease their chances of having cancer. So any change, any tilt in the environmental condition will lead to a change in the disease condition. Now look at this thing. The host is the human body. The black background is the environment. And what you see there are agents. Now, if you remove the human body from the picture, that is, you are removing the host, then there won't be diseases. You will only be left with the environment and the disease-causing agent, and there is no human population, so no diseases. Take away all the agents that are here in the picture, leave the human body and the environment, then there won't be any disease because there are no agents to cause the disease. Alternatively, change the background to red, make it unsuitable for all these organisms that are causing diseases to thrive. They will all die off when you change the environment, and then there won't be diseases as well. So this is the theory of epidemiological triangle. One, there has to be a host, there has to be a suitable environment, and there has to be an agent. And if you change the environment, make it unsuitable for the agent, then there won't be diseases. And in some cases, when the environment changes drastically and it becomes unsuitable for the host to live in such environment, humans will migrate and leave the environment. And once they leave the environment, it means they are leaving the environment with the disease-causing agents in the environment. And subsequently, there won't be diseases. Now, this is the first model of disease causation. Now, the next model is the causal ties model. Now, the epidemiological triangle doesn't work well with some diseases, particularly non-infectious diseases. If you take road accident, for instance, is something of public health importance. If you take lung cancer, is something of public health importance, and several other diseases like mental illness that are non-communicable in nature, then and are not caused by any infectious agent. So how do you explain it using the epidemiological triangle? So the epidemiological triangle has limitation. So as a result of that, there is what is called the causal ties model. Now bring a picture of a pie chart into your brain. You will see that pie chart is made up of different components. Or bring a picture of a stew on your dining table. What are the components that form that stew? The oil, tomatoes, pepper, onion, meat, salt. So you have to put all those ingredients together before you arrive and have a soup. Removing some of the ingredients completely will leave you without a soup. For instance, as little as salt, when you remove it, you remove salt, you remove Maggi, you remove oil, you end up with only boiled tomato and onions. You don't have a soup. So also in diseases, there are certain factors that they have to come together for a particular disease to be formed. Now, the highlight of this one is that an individual factor that contributes to disease is known as a piece of a pie. Take, for instance, a pie chart. So anything now that causes the disease that is a factor will now form part of the pie. I have pies here, I will come and explain. Now, after all the pieces of pie fall into place, the piece is complete and then the disease will occur. The individual factors are called component causes. Please mute yourself. All of you should mute yourself, please. Please mute your microphones. Okay, now after all the pieces of a pie fall into place, then the pie is complete and then the disease will occur. Now, the individual factors are called component causes. The complete pie, which may be considered as a causal pathway, is called a sufficient cause. I am going to explain to you what a component cause is and what a sufficient cause is. Now, a disease may have more than one sufficient cause, and each sufficient cause being composed of several components of causes that may occur and may or may not overlap. Now, let me use a pie here to explain to you what it means to have component cause. Look at this one now. This is a pie that now comes in to explain how HIV infection is acquired. What we have here first is exposure to person with HIV. That is either having sexual contact with the person, taking blood transfusion from the person, or coming into contact with fluid from the body of an infected person. Now, another component factor that is responsible also that has to be there is absence of antiretrovirals. Then another factor as well is engaging in risky sexual behaviors of having multiple partners without protection. Now, when you take these pieces together, if you remove the first pink one, remove exposure to person with HIV. That is, if you don't come into contact with anybody that has HIV or any fluid from the body of a person that is infected with HIV, you are certainly not going to get HIV. Even if there is no retrovirals, antiretrovirals, even if you engage in risky sexual behaviors with people that are non-infected with HIV. So if you look at it, exposure to person with HIV, this one in pink, is necessary. It becomes absolutely necessary for you to have HIV. You must come into contact with the virus, and it has to be directly from the body fluid of a person that already has the virus. So without that, or using injection after the person now infected person use the same syringe and needle. Now, in that case, exposure to HIV, a person with HIV, becomes a sufficient cause without which you will not be infected with HIV. Then others are component causes. Engaging in risky sexual behaviors can be removed. Exposure to HIV, person with HIV, absence of retrovirals, then the next thing you put here is sharing of syringe instead of engaging in sexual behavior. You can remove it because it's not a consonant. That is not a sufficient cause. It's not necessary to be there. It can be replaced by another factor. You can now say, okay, I am removing engaging in risky sexual behaviors. I'm putting sharing the same clipper for bathing. When there is a person with HIV is bathed, and then there is blood on this staining the clipper, and then another person is bathed. So engaging in risky sexual behaviors can be removed. Sharing of same syringes can be put here. Sharing of the same clipper, and also blood transfusion. You can remove this one now and say, okay, let me change it with blood transfusion. And then this pie is still complete. But by the time you remove exposure to person with HIV and then put blood transfusion or any other thing, the pie will not be complete because exposure to person with HIV is a sufficient cause. There has to be a sufficient cause for disease transmission to occur. Now, the causal pie model suggests that each causing effect is a pie. When the pie is complete in 360, then diseases occur. Each pie consists of a sufficient cause. Now, what I have done is explaining to you what a sufficient cause is. Sufficient cause is the cause that must be present before the pie will now be considered complete to cause disease. Now, let me give you a quiz. Accident as a result of accidents, car accidents, are so frequent and a lot of people are losing their lives. Now, as an epidemiologist, how many factors do you think can be causal factors of an accident? Can you just unmute yourself one by one and list factors that can cause car accidents? And then we now take all those factors and form a pie.
Bad road network.
Bad roads.
Overspeeding.
Bad road network.
Wait a minute. Overspeeding.
I'm coming. Untrained drivers.
Reckless driving.
Drunk drivers.
Substance abuse.
Substance abuse.
Brake failure.
Drinking and driving.
What do you want?
That is drunk drivers.
Faulty car.
Brake failure.
Six tires.
Brake
Six
failure.
tires.
Using of while driving.
Head tires. Using phone while driving.
Texting and driving.
That's using phone while driving.
Sleeping on the steering.
Sleeping on steering.
Driving.
Eating while driving.
Driving.
Corruption.
Okay. Now,
Being in bad shape.
thank you for all these factors. Now, if you take bad road,
Dangerous overtaking.
dangerous overtaking, that's dangerous driving.
If you stick on
So go back and mute yourself.
What do you want?
Go back and mute yourself. Thank you. Sorry, mute your microphones. Let's continue.
Untrained drivers.
Okay, sir.
Okay, mute your microphones. Now, if you look at all these ones now you have stated, if you take 4, bad roads, drunk drivers, fed tires, brake failure, they are enough to cause what? Road accident. Any 4 combination can cause a pie. So let's look at a typical. Now, A, a car hitting another vehicle. B, poor road design, which you mentioned. C, high speed. D, slippery road. E, expired tired drivers. F, low visibility. G, poor light. H, faulty brakes. I, inexperienced drivers. J, unrestrained drivers. Unrestrained drivers, that is bad drivers. Now, if you take any 4, you can now cause what? A pie for road accident. For instance, this pie is saying A, B, G, H, and F. You can see A, B, G, H, and F. That is car hit another vehicle, poor road design, high speed, faulty brakes, inexperienced driver, or poor light. So assuming that, okay, they are moving at high speed, and then the brakes, there was faulty brake, and then there was poor light visibility, and another car hits another vehicle. So you can now go on to number 2. You can now use A, F, I, J, C. You can go back and use A, C, B, D, E. But I want you to tell me, or to just observe, which part of the pie is always constant? That is A.
A.
Because we are saying death from car collision. A, car hitting car. Because that is the major head-on collision. Exactly. So A is a sufficient cause. A is a sufficient cause because we are talking about death from car hitting car head-on collision. So if a car didn't hit another car, even if there is poor road, high speed, slippery road, tired driver, low visibility, poor light, even all these ones are there. But if the car didn't hit another car, there will be no death, isn't it? If you like, keep drinking. In fact, put a brewery in your car, put a TO in your mouth while you are driving, you are breathing and drinking. If the car doesn't hit another car, it's okay. There is no sufficient cause. So these are the sufficient causes that forms a particular pie. And if you look at it, every single disease, if we want, we can draw a chart of the factors that are responsible for causing those diseases. That is the causal factors and then the sufficient causing factor. But for the disease to occur, the sufficient factor must be present. Now, if you look at the highlight, I want you to pay a very important attention to this highlight. An individual factor that contributes to cause disease is shown as a piece of a pie. After all the pieces of a pie fall into place, the pie is complete and disease occurs. The individual factors are called component cause. Now, the complete pie, which might be considered a causal pathway, is called a sufficient cause. Now, a sufficient cause is a complete pie And there has to be one important factor in it that is sufficient enough to make the pie complete, without which the pie will not be complete. Now, if you look at it, a disease may have more than one sufficient cause, with each sufficient cause being composed of several component causes that may or may not overlap. Now, let's go back to this. Let's remove death from a head-on car collision. Let's say death from car accidents, generally car accidents. So if we now take general car accidents, all these factors, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, could be associated or could come and form a pie in any order, because they are all component causes. But after putting all of them together, for the complete 360 pie to be complete, we now have to have a sufficient cause, which is the actual car accident. So it means that all other components can come together, and then when the pie is complete, that is when now we say this is the causal model using the pie technique. Now, a disease may have more than one sufficient cause. A component that appears in every pie or pathway is called a necessary cause, because without it, diseases doesn't occur. If you look at the HIV model, you can see that this pink component, however you want to form a HIV pie, you must have exposure to person with HIV or exposure to HIV virus. If you are not exposed to the virus in any way, there is no any other factor that can come and take its place and form the pie for the pie to be complete. But you can change engaging in risky sexual behaviors, as I have said. You can replace it with use of sharing of syringes. You can replace it with blood transfusion. You can replace it with sharing of the same clipper. But when you remove exposure to the virus itself, then the pie will not be complete. So this one now is a sufficient cause. Irrespective of other causes, there has to be one important cause that must be there for diseases to occur. Now, if you look at the summary here, there are two models of disease causation. One, the epidemiology triangle or the epidemiology triad. Now, the triangle simply says there has to be an agent, a suitable environment, and a host. The host is human, the agent is any disease-causing organism, and then the environment is any suitable environment that warrants the host to survive and the agent. And if you look at this, as I have said, this is human, which is the host, the black background is the environment, and then these are the agents that causes the disease. Now, besides that one, there's the causal pie model. In this one, it says a disease can be caused by different components, different factors. Each factor forms a piece of a pie, and depending on the strength or the importance of that factor, you can see the size it takes. For instance, exposure here to the person with HIV or exposure to the virus takes a significant form of the pie because it's a very important one. There are cases you find that there will be a small portion attributed to certain factors because the factors can play a role. However, they are not very important, or the role which they play is very negligible. So this is the pie model. And as you can see, there are different components that can form a particular disease. And without the sufficient cause, the disease cannot occur. Now, epidemiology is not only about diseases, but also include health-related events within human population. Health-related events are death as a result of industrial accidents, car accidents, natural disasters like storm, man-made artificial disasters, and a lot of other factors that are within the human population that can either cause injury or death. Now, building, the type of houses people are building also prone them to certain diseases because of accidents and the nature of their environment. You find that people that are in a city, within one city, that are living in the government reserve areas where the environment is serene and clean, hardly have diseases that people who live in congested areas, squalors, so to say, with poor environmental sanitation, poor nutritional status, they have more diseases. You find that within one city, there could be differences in prevalence of a particular disease from one particular location to another location. Sometimes it could be even from up street to down street. You find that people living up street don't have certain diseases, while people living down street may likely have the diseases because as you go down street, the water that is draining downward and is collecting at the end of the street, and that there will be some mosquito breeding grounds down street. So people down street have more mosquitoes, therefore suffer more of malaria from malaria than people living up street. So all these things are the things you consider as an epidemiologist. As soon as they tell you this is a particular disease ravaging this community, what you should start doing is look at the causation factors. Without you knowing what causes the disease, how the disease is caused, what are the components of the pie, or what are the component of the triangle that forms that particular disease, you cannot effectively mount a control program for that particular disease. Because you will agree with me, there are certain components of the pie, the sufficient cause. As soon as you remove them, there won't be transmission, or the prevalence of the disease will certainly go down. If you look at HIV, if you remove exposure to the virus, everything goes away. So as an epidemiologist, whenever they mention a disease, think of the factors that causes the disease. Think and then draw it in form of either a triangle or a pie chart, give each component and then see which one is the sufficient, and then start attacking or controlling that particular sufficient cause. But always remember, there has to be an agent that causes the disease if you are looking at it by the epidemiological triangle. Now, let's take this assignment. If you look at it, we have problem of COVID-19, that's coronavirus infection. I want you to draw at least 3 different component causes, that is pies, that we can say are responsible for causing coronavirus or COVID-19 infection. And when you do so, you should also identify the sufficient cause without which there won't be infection. For instance, if you look at it, you will say, okay, sufficient cause in HIV is exposure to the virus. So it means all viral infection, sufficient cause, that means having contact or coming into contact with the virus. If you are not exposed to coronavirus, then you are not going to have COVID-19 infection. You are not going to be infected. Now, what are the other components of the pie that you can bring in to complete it if you take exposure to the virus? Can you unmute yourself and give examples?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We say
Close proximity.
Exposure to the virus is a sufficient cause.
Close
Close
proximity with an infected person.
Non-exposure to the virus.
COVID vaccine.
Non-availability of vaccine.
Poor immunity. So
poor immunity.
okay.
Underlying
Poor immunity.
Yes.
Lack of
Underlying
social
weather.
health
distance.
conditions.
Lack of social
Cold weather.
distance. Lack of using PPE by
Yes,
medical
lack
professionals.
of social distance is still exposure to the virus.
Underlying health conditions.
weather.
Undermining
Underlying health conditions. Underlining.
conditions,
Yeah.
and then age.
Lack of adequate
Age.
Inappropriate use of PPEs.
lack of adequate
Appropriate use of PPEs.
lack of adequate PPEs.
Fine. So you can see
Health
that
professionals.
you can see that we now have different causes.
Corruption.
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 If you don't kill corruption, corruption will kill you. So you can now see that we have different causes that can all go back and form what? Part of the pie. But then exposure to the virus will now be a sufficient what? Cause. So you can now sit down, look at various diseases, and then draw chart and see what are the component of that disease that must come together before forming that particular disease. You can as well list all the causes and then come and form a pie chart. For instance, if you take lung cancer, there is predisposing genetic factors. There is exposure to air or asbestos, air pollution. Then there is smoking as well. But then there are people also that doesn't smoke and are not exposed to all these things, but then they also have lung cancer. So that means genetic predisposition in itself could be enough to set someone on. However, when you have the other two factors, they serve as encouraging factors. So it's good again for you to know that most of these factors manifest themselves over time. Okay, please mute yourself. Mute your microphones. Otherwise, you will force me to go back to the main class and see which participant is unmuted and then send the participant away. So in essence, these are the two theories that are put forward by epidemiologists for disease causation. There are other theories as well that are responsible, or other things that can cause diseases or can be responsible for disease transmission, that we can say they are the ones also that models or methods through which diseases can occur. But naturally, what I know is that you yourself can bring certain factors that will cause disease. Because when we say disease, we are looking at this is. So when you put the two together, you end up with disease. Now, anything that will disease you, that is to make you not at ease or unease, is what? Is a disease, isn't it? So you yourself can cause things, or you can disease yourself. For instance, if they invite you to a party, with apology to the ladies, I am not trying to say it's ladies that does that. You put your good shoe to match. Unfortunately, the shoe is too tight. You will go to that function and sit down. You want the color of the shoe to be same with your bag and your ogogo. Tight legs, and you will be moving your legs. You will not be at ease throughout the function. You end up putting yourself not at ease, isn't it? And immediately after the function, you see them removing the shoes and putting it back into their bag and bringing out slippers or another shoe that will make them at ease. So you see, you are also diseasing yourself. So if you look at it, you can create a causal pi. Please, why don't you mute yourself while you are at a bus stop and you allow people to be shouting into our class? So if you look at it that way, you find that you are also uneasing yourself. Then you can sit down and okay, let me mute all. I think it's better that way. Let me be dictatorial to mute all. You can see now that you are diseasing yourself and putting yourself not at ease. So you can sit down and draw a causal pi. What is the sufficient cause? Wearing tight shoe. Why do you want to wear tight shoe? To look to match. Why do you want to be wearing to match? To be either important or to feel good. So when you form that, you see that the sufficient cause is putting that shoe. So you are diseasing yourself. So remove the shoe, you remove the sufficient cause, and then you walk freely, isn't it? So thank you so much. Raise your hands. Then I will call you in the order in which you raise your hands so that you can unmute yourself and ask questions. Yes, there is no name, but it just say Infinix Hot 9. So you can unmute yourself.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead with your
Sir,
question, please.
I thank you so much, sir, for your
visible. If you are talking, make sure you put on your camera so that people can see you.
Okay, sir.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Please, my question is this. This sufficient cause. What is the difference between a sufficient cause and the necessary cause in the causal pi?
The necessary cause is the same thing as the sufficient cause, because without the necessary cause, you cannot have the disease. So when you put the necessary cause and other causes, that is what gives you what? A disease, isn't it? So that's why it is also called the sufficient cause. Depending on how you put on the pi, you find that in some cases, in some literature, they draw more than 3 pies. They will draw pi 1, pi 2, pi 3, and now say, okay, this is a sufficient cause pi, and this is a necessary pi, and things like that. But as far as, to my understanding, a necessary pi is also necessary for a necessary cause for the pi to be complete. So it's almost, it's the same thing actually with sufficient cause, depending on how it is used.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Any other question? Any other question?
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Some of us are joining for the first time, sir, and we are like confused. We don't know whether it is 803 or 804 because the course material I have with me in person. These things you are teaching us is not in there, sir. I don't know which one. Please, sir, can you clarify, sir?
This is PHS 803.
But, sir, the material we are having with us, these things you are teaching us are not inside. I don't know whether the materials were reconstituted or so, whether we have to go for another material, sir.
During the last, the first lectures, I announced that people should go online and download the actual course material that have been uploaded. The one that I download online is the one I'm using.
Oh, all right, sir. I'll
so
go and
please
check, sir. Thank you very much.
Go to Noun eCourseware, put Faculty of Health Sciences, level, put 800 level, then you will see it, principles of epidemiology, and then you download it.
All right, sir. Thank you very much.
Marcy Stone. Marcy, you can unmute yourself.
No, I will say the one
I'm the one you just answered, sir.
Okay, fine. Then let's go to who is the next person?
Good morning, sir. Good afternoon,
Morning.
sir. Sir, so I want to ask a question. There's a material that the school gave us. We should disregard that one.
No, ma. What I said you should do is go to Noun Course Eware, download a new material that is Principles of Epidemiology, pages 803, and use it.
Okay, sir, because the one the school gave us is quite different from the one I downloaded. The hard copy is different from the one I downloaded.
That's
So
what
use,
he's saying.
use the one you downloaded. The one they gave you was an old version of it, which we consider very, so to say, scanty, because it's only about 80 something pages or 120. And what we uploaded now is over 200 pages. So please use the one we uploaded.
Okay,
who next? Fatima Atoyebi.
Okay, good morning, sir.
Morning.
Sir, mine is about the assignment. How do we submit it? Because I just joined and I'm unable to access the e-platform.
When you access the e-platform, you can see the chat. You can put it in the chat. You can put it in the discussion forum.
That's what I'm saying. I'm unable to access it for now. They said the problem is from the MIS office, that our admission numbers have not been uploaded here yet.
Okay, so when they upload your admission numbers, you do so. Thank you. Obi. Obi Hiage. Okay. Sorry for murdering your name if I didn't pronounce it correctly.
It's fine, sir. Good. It's fine, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon.
My question also sort of lends to the last person that spoke. I just wanted a clarification as well with the assignment, because you brought that up. We've sort of answered it in class, but are we still expected to go and actually do a documentation and submit that documentation?
What you should do is you should just sit down and do it on your own, and then send it either to the discussion forum or to the chat forum within the e-learning platform.
Okay, sir.
Yes.
All right.
Just
thank you, sir.
Put your name there and say, these are the list of factors I consider can cause this disease, and the pi can be A, B, C, or D, E, F, or whatever.
Okay.
Okay, Favor Daniel. Okay, US. Oh, is this a name or a device? Scenic.
It's a name, sir.
Oh, so you put US. So I thought. Okay, go ahead, please. Sorry for that.
Okay. Good morning, sir. And thank you very much, sir. Concerning the material, although you have answered most of the questions, sir. But I want to know the old one, is it still relevant to us? Like, can we still read the old one along with the new one, or we should just focus on the new one? Thank you very much, sir.
No, you see, you can even go and look for other things online that are not given to you by National Open University. If I were you, I would just go on to Google either PowerPoint or SlideShare website and ask to have epidemiology, disease causal theories, causal theory. And then you go over the slide and new materials that are not even given to you by National Open University. So you can as well go ahead and use the old one. But what I am telling you, I am using the uploaded version. I will use it for my lectures. I will use it for my questions. I will use it for my TMA, and I will use it for every other thing. So you should now also rely on the uploaded version. Salihu, I think you should be the last question.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for the lecture. My question is, yes, my question is also on the TMA, sir.
Are they ready?
Hello, sir. My question is on the TMA, sir.
Okay.
Usually after every unit, there is a TMA. So are we supposed to do a TMA and then submit it? After every unit, there is a TMA.
Now, Salihu, those questions in the study material are just to guide you. so that you can now test your ability to answer the questions or your level of understanding. But I don't know. You are not actually supposed to answer it. If I have any assignment, I will give the assignment online and I will tell you the mode of submission. However, if you are looking at the study material, all those questions that are in the study material are just to serve as a guide to you. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Gloria, you are coming late to raise your hand. So let me take you as the last person.
Hello, sir. This is Favor.
Okay,
Good morning, sir.
Morning,
Thank you very
Gloria.
much,
Can you
sir.
please use your put on your video?
Okay, sir. Hello, good morning, sir.
Morning, Gloria. So go ahead, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for a wonderful lecture, sir.
Thank you.
I joined in pretty late, but I was able to still follow through with what you were teaching.
The slides will be made available on the study platform, and then I will send it also the recorded Zoom. Lectures will be sent to your emails.
Okay, so as regards to TMA, I don't know the assignments, whether we're going to have it on the slides. That's why I was calling. That's why I was asking.
Whether
the assignments are also going to be
what?
Will be part of the slides. For us, I did not get the assignment, but I only got 2 questions here. List all the possible components, causes of COVID-19 infection, and draw at least 3 different component causes and identify one sufficient cause. If that's all the assignments, then
that's it.
All right,
okay, thank you so much for, it's already 12 o'clock. Unfortunately, Vivian is raising her hand. So hopefully, ask the last question, please, before we leave.
Okay, good morning, sir.
Morning, put on your camera, please.
Okay, I wanted to ask.
Okay, go ahead with the question if you are having difficulty with the camera.
Okay, sir. I wanted to ask. Some of us still don't get the email. Like I've never gotten the email because you just made mention of sending the recorded Zoom lecture our email. So how do we go about it?
Now, if you don't get what we are sending by the email, maybe the email you gave to the university is wrong, or something is wrong somewhere. Because all of you, while registering, you submit emails. If you didn't admission form yourself or didn't use your email during the admission, then ask the person that did that for you to check the email that was supplied while you are seeking admission. Because all of you, as you registered, you have submitted an email, and the email was what we harvested and we are using. So in the event that you don't get the emails, you can still come to the e-learning platform and check on the week 3 activities. You will still find the Zoom link.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So thank you so much, and bye-bye for now. See you hopefully next week or the week after for the next PHS 803. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.